Welcome to Leadership Rediscovered. This is a continuation of my conversation with Mark and Mary Cholock. If you haven't had a chance to listen to part one, please do so before we jump into part two. So you said something earlier, and I want to go back to it because when we were talking about kind of your daily schedule and your life and your kids, how often do you talk about your business in front of the kids? I mean, how involved is your family in your business?
I mean, they're part of it every day.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because the boys will sometimes come and do their homework downstairs, like so they can hear my calls, and so they're very much in tuned to what we talk about with clients because it's financial services, so we talk a lot about money and about their situation. And so as we're talking through that, they'll have questions or they'll get like, I'll get off the call and like Andy was like, man, he was not having that yesterday, you know? And I'm like, you're right. And he's like, why? And I explained some things. He's like, oh, well, of course, Mom. Like you were trying to help. And like, you know, but it's good that they see like we don't always win. Like we share wins and we share losses. Like I could have a $12,000 week and I can have a 0 week, right? And they know, like, okay, wow, Mom. And every call I get off of, they ask how it went and what we talked about. Like, they always ask how our day was. I mean, maybe we set a good example when they were little. Like, how was school?
You know, we always have.
Yeah, but they always ask.
How was your day? How did you sleep when we get up in the morning? Did you sleep good?
Yeah,
Dad, I had a good sleep. All right.
So true. But they always ask how the day was. And so we always tell them. And we tell them, like, we definitely celebrate wins. We had a promotion that we were just shy of. And we're like, man, we didn't quite get it. But there were other wins, you know? So we celebrated those other wins. And we're like, that was kind of a stretch anyway. But it looks like we're on track to do it next month. So it should be fine. But they definitely understand it. They both, I mean, this may have been we may have like ruined ourselves. I don't know. But like, we have pretty smart kids. Yeah. And we're so fortunate that way. But they now don't necessarily see the value of college because they're in a world where, like the job that we do, you just need to pass an exam.
Right.
And there's so much learning around them all the time. Like our son Andy sells shoes and lacrosse stuff online all the time, constantly, right? Like Zach is constantly asking about when he can start booking appointments and setting up like our email lists and stuff like that. Because
Andy wants to be the tech guy and set up all of our
but they're
technical
exposed
stuff.
To, I mean, but think about what you're teaching them, because I think about growing up, you know, my dad got up at the same time every day, went off to his, you know, corporate job. There's nothing wrong with that. But then he came home and I remember he would go on business trips and I'd be like, make sure you bring your swimming clothes so you can, you know, hang out in the pool. He's like, I'm not going on vacation. I'm going on a business trip where I'm going to work, you know, 20 hours in a day. Like there's no swimming going on. But like I had no concept of what they did, what he did and really no part of it. And I had a guest on this podcast, Greg Clutter, who talked about, you know, kids when they're being exposed to things, you know, they can't be it if they can't see it. And so I just think about what you're exposing your children to. And you're right, you're opening their eyes up to, and again, it's not, you know, we're not saying you should go to college, you shouldn't go to college, but I mean, you're just showing them different opportunities and the reality of life and what it means to be an adult and the working world and all of that.
Right. And I think that you can't be it unless you see it. Philosophy translates to adults.
Yes.
Mark and I had no idea the capacity that he and I have together.
Right.
If we hadn't been introduced to people who have been here 3 years ago and are now doing, right? So like when you're working in the corporate world, I mean, like when I started in the lab as a chemist.
We grew up in that environment of put your head down. Go get a good job. Right. And work for 30 years and retire and you're happy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we collectively, somewhere in the middle there, were like, there's probably a different way. We didn't know it. We didn't. But as time went on and we were introduced to different people and kind of saw different ways to make a living, then it started to click.
Yeah. And so for like our exposure to those different ideas would never have happened. If he stayed working in the corporate world and I stayed ragged 16 hours a day at home with the kids and he was ragged from his experience, there was no capacity to learn or see a life that was different than that. And to everyone else, you know, our families, like that seemed, well, you're paying your bills, you have a nice house, your 3 kids
you
are
should
healthy.
Be grateful.
Like,
why
aren't
would
you
want
grateful?
To change that?
I am grateful and I know that there's more. Right?
I am grateful. I'm just going to take it from here to here. You know?
Because there's a huge amount of what do I want to say? Like there's a huge amount of impact. Like a ripple that happens when like somebody sees something different, you know, like
Yes.
when someone is willing to take a risk or someone's willing to show you how they got there, right? Like
Yes.
it expands what you ever thought. Like that's
Yeah.
our word of the year. Like, and this is so
That's
funny.
awesome.
So in November of 2020, yes, that was around the time that Mark asked me to join him in the business.
Gotcha.
And I had set my word for the next year was possibility. And it was so funny because like
Ooh.
it came to me in a conversation and I thought, that's like the lamest word. Possibility. Like what the heck? Couldn't it be something great? Like,
Yeah.
you know, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, power. Like
Yeah.
possibility sounded so
Possibility.
wimpy.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking back, I'm like, holy cow, like that was everything.
That was the perfect
Focusing
word.
that year on possibilities and what that could mean. You know, I built my first vision board. Like I was
Yeah.
41 years old or 42 years old and I'm like, well, crap, what do I want in my life? I don't even know. I never even
Yes.
took stock. I was a mom of 3 and I never dreamt about anything. I had no dreams.
Right.
Like-
you had enough to fill your brain every day.
Right?
Keeping humans alive.
Right. But I just said that to him the other day. I said, you know how long I said I don't have any space for that?
Yeah.
So I didn't. I can't learn
you
that.
are what you believe. You
Yeah.
are what you say.
Yeah.
If you say I can't do that, well, of
You're
course
right.
you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this
You've
year,
already set that
Yeah.
boundary for
Yeah.
yourself.
You're
yeah.
right.
And so now this year's expansion, like in
That's
everything,
awesome.
I'm going to learn the rules of basketball.
Can you teach me?
Like that's one of those things. I'm like, oh my gosh, I keep telling Zach like I don't understand
Yeah.
these calls. I don't understand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I keep saying I can't learn it. Like this is what
Yes.
in these little areas you just start to really like when you're really learning and working on yourself, you really start to see yourself, right? Like
Yes,
everything's a
yes.
mirror back. Like
Yes.
I can't learn how to play basketball. Oh, you can't say that. You wouldn't want your kid to say that. Like
Right. Exactly.
you really start to reflect like
How do you talk to yourself?
yeah, and you
Yeah.
become very clear on like where those negative pieces are that are limiting you.
Yes.
Like they're like blaring. And if
Yes.
you can't say it for yourself, having Mark sit next to you and let you know, he tells
What?
he's like, why are you saying you can't do that? You can absolutely do that.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. But
It's interesting. I mean, when I'm making an assumption here, so I'm going to put it out there, but I do feel like you two have a very strong communication with each other. I mean, it feels like it's very authentic, raw, maybe at times, but
Yeah.
very honest conversation. I mean,
Absolutely.
and to me, that leads to, your success in what you're doing. I'd love to hear what other attributes you think or qualities that you have that allow you to do this life and to be successful in it. What would you say?
Just being open-minded,
Yeah.
like to the possibilities, to what's in front of you.
Yeah.
Like one perspective too, to not to take it back too far, but the more you work on your own business,
Yeah.
and we don't work 70 hours a week,
Right.
but if you do put anything in extra, the difference here is it's for building our legacy. It's for what we're
Yes.
building.
Yes.
Versus I work 60 hours a week for this corporation over here for
Yeah.
somebody else.
For somebody else.
So
Yeah.
it makes some of those long days, and really not every day is a long day for us, but
Yeah.
it does make that extra effort.
Yes.
It's very easy
Yeah.
to put in your mind of like, okay, yeah, we're doing this for us.
Yes. Absolutely.
But
as far as
attributes, my gosh, I don't know.
I think this is it. I think this is one. It's like we don't assume the worst. Like we're not naturally
Ooh.
skeptical about
Yeah.
everything or cynical. Not
Yeah.
skeptical, cynical maybe.
Yeah.
I think I've been around a lot of people who assume always that like it's too good to be true.
It's
Yeah.
the world out to get you,
Yes.
or it's too good to be
Yes.
true.
Yes.
And when you kind of one of the other quotes I love, and this is a lady who I felt like if there's a person that I could like meet and hang out with and she could be my best friend, her name is Meredith Ellison, and she's just incredible.
Ellison.
Yeah,
I have not heard of her.
yeah. So
Okay.
she's one of the founders of the company,
Okay.
and these people are just her goal in this company is that when they created it was to build wholehearted culture, and
Ooh.
she's all in on it. And
Mhm.
I got to invite her to our team call, and she was
Oh
amazing.
my gosh.
But she lives by the mantra of always assume positive intent.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So like when somebody offers you an opportunity, and this
Yeah.
is how this was for us, right? Like I have to tell you, these calls begin every day with gratitude. These people are kind to each other.
Aw.
They clearly communicate. We live out our core values. And like when I tell you we walk them out to the point of
Yeah.
like it could be tattooed on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was hard.
Yeah.
Coming out of like a place where, and a lot of corporations are like, there's a lot of jobs. It's so competitive, right?
Yes.
Like
Competitive,
there's
dog
only
eat dog,
Yeah.
and like
there's only so many promotions. There's only so
Yes.
many positions. Now we're laying off. Like there's that stress.
Well, you don't know if you could trust everybody that you're working with
Absolutely.
either.
Right. And
Absolutely.
so when opportunities come to you
Yeah.
and your first instinct is that it's not true or it can't be
Yes.
possible,
Yeah.
then you it won't work.
Yeah.
Like when a new opportunity like shows up on our doorstep, whether it's a new person that wants to work with us, whether it's a random phone call of a client that's got an amazing referral for us, or whether it's an opportunity to do a podcast with your friend, like you don't go like, wonder what she wants.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
yes,
Let's do it.
The answer is yes, right?
Yes.
Like let's do it and assume it's the right step instead of like just always
guessing.
that there's some negative force behind it. Like just
Yes.
live in the good. It's such a better place to be.
Well, and I do think that's a really unique thing about you two. First of all, being in a relationship for so long with each other, but then when you're making decisions, you know that you're looking out for each other, because why would you? Why
There's
would you
no
do
ulterior
something that's going
motives.
to have a negative impact? It impacts your whole family.
Yeah. Right.
So
right.
why would you make a decision that would negatively impact Mary and vice versa?
There's total trust in that.
Yeah.
And what was I going to say? It slipped my mind.
I don't know. It looks so good.
No. And no matter what, like throughout our work day, work week, our journey, like we have each other's back.
Yeah.
And meaning too that like some weeks Mary's so on point and so great, but I might not be having a great week.
Yeah.
Or month or day or whatever the case is. She picks up my slack.
Yeah.
But vice versa. There's times
Yeah.
where maybe she's not on her best.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I've got it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's so important too.
And you are
I
right
think.
in that we're like opposite enough,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard of voice orders. Have you ever heard of voice orders?
5 voices.
The 5 voices. So it's like a personality assessment, but it's really focused on communication.
Okay.
And so it basically takes
Voice orders.
5 voice orders, and it's out of a consulting company called Giant. And so it's really focused on interpersonal interaction, right?
Okay.
So really focused on communication, because in our business, we're meeting with clients and we're meeting with our team, right? And it's all over Zoom or a phone call. So it has that's not the best way to communicate, right? It's there's issues that can pop up. But we did our voice orders, right? And I've done Myers-Briggs, I've done Clifton Strengths, he's done them too. Like, and sometimes it's like so much information, you don't even know how to apply it necessarily, right? Like I took my top 5 strengths, I was like, let's just live there, right?
Good.
Like, those
We're gonna
other
do that.
30 some, like whatever,
but
right?
Yes.
Right? So now, like with this, there's 5 voice orders. There's a pioneer, connector. There's a pioneer, a connector, a creative, a nurturer, and a guardian. Guardian, very system focused, like a robot, right?
Yeah.
Very present focused and very system focused. Nurturer wants everyone in the room to be heard, but they're very present focused, so they won't necessarily like move forward without permission or creative is someone that thinks like outside the box, looks for pitfalls, looks for opportunities, right? But can get distracted easily. Pioneer.
Like
If I were guessing, I would have guessed.
My guess
Laura.
is you and I actually are probably the same.
You probably are.
We probably are very close. She might be a connector creative.
Yeah.
But anyway, so connector is someone who really values connecting with other people, can get a lot of information out of people, makes them very comfortable. And then a pioneer is someone who like sees the vision and goes for it, and like, but doesn't necessarily.
You got it.
They're not necessarily concerned with the wake that they leave, right? So Mark, so Mark is a pioneer, creative connector.
Gotcha.
Okay, which makes him great. And your third voice is kind of like the superpower
The
behind
venom
it.
voice.
Yeah.
It
Well,
just pops out.
yeah.
Well,
so
not venom,
but it's like the one you kind of have to watch to keep in check. Like Mark can connect with people for 6 hours in a Walmart parking lot.
Yeah.
So we sometimes have to get him back on track.
It sounds like my mom.
But I'm a creative connector pioneer. So my third voice is pioneer, and that can come out very harsh sometimes. But my creative, I have a lot of great ideas, but his pioneer helps me to like focus that energy.
Yes.
But like he needs me to sometimes come up with the idea over here. He's like, oh, we could do that. And then he's like, yeah, that's where we're going to go.
You see like that complementary overlap there between your 3 and your 3.
Yes. And so for us, like, and all of those voices, like Pioneer and Creative, are very future oriented, which I think makes leadership easier for us. Because if you're someone who's very present focused, it's hard to see. And I think the reason that I've always loved to train and share those experiences with people is because I see where the pitfall might happen, and I'm like, we can avoid that, right? If we just give you the information,
we teach you.
And then Mark's like, come over here, the water's warm, we're going that way, right? Like, just so I think that those voices are a gift in our situation, because it's not something we have to overcome.
Yes,
they're working for us.
Well, and that's a good point, because anyone listening to this might be like, I don't know, they might turn to their, significant other, be like, let's start a business together. This is going to be great.
Good
you may want
to,
like,
might want to slow down.
Maybe not. So, I mean, obviously you have the right conditions. There's a lot of factors that go into, why this works for you and how it's successful. So we'll put a disclaimer.
Well, I'm going to add to that disclaimer. Like, we have a great relationship. Nothing's perfect. I mean, we bicker just like the rest of the world, you know, but we find a way to make everything work. We have mutual respect the whole way around, no matter what. Like, we can have an argument and walk away and be mad, but when we come back together, it's over. Like, so
it's so fascinating though, just to think about, the relationship side of it as well. I think about like the Gottmans. I don't know if you've ever read any of their work, but they talk about like I think they call them the 4 horsemen of, and they're the people that they can predict within 15 minutes of meeting a couple whether they'll get divorced with like 90% accuracy.
That might be a
really interesting, because they write about, more of romantic type relationships. However, when I was listening to it, I was like, this is workplace, like all day long. You can use this information, in terms of your family scenarios as well. So can I make a little shift? Because another thing that I was thinking about is goal setting. I feel like you're probably incredibly intentional with how you set goals. And I'm curious about, are they like family goals or business goals? Or how do you do that? Again, with just all these worlds kind of colliding together.
Yeah, that's a great question.
That is.
Well,
we should probably hire a consultant to help us.
Well, I think early on, the goal was to just tread water. Like, let's get this thing going. And now we are, like, coming into 2023, we are at that point. And we are very intentional now.
Yeah.
Like, we know what's ahead of us.
Well, now we're
projecting.
I was going to say, now we're intentional with where we want to go. We were very intentional about getting like our systems and our life organized around. I would say that realistically, like, our first couple of years in this life was being intentional. Our goals were getting to this point. Getting to the point where, like,
100%.
we have our rhythm, we have our balance and flow of our days and our weeks, and now, I mean, now our numbers mean things. Now our, as we're looking through it.
Profit loss. And, as we're bringing new team members onto the team, we have a good idea of like how the business is growing now. It's much easier now to set the goals.
To extrapolate those goals. Because I think for the first couple of years, at least for me, I mean, and I'm not real goal driven number wise, like that's never been like a great strength of mine, but like doing the vision board was just kind of like, can I imagine myself in this life, right? Like, it was just about getting to that point. Like, let me get out of this scarcity mindset. Let me get into that place of abundance and like how that feels. Like, what's it feel like to just wake up and just enjoy your day? What's it feel like to
not have the Sunday blues?
Right? And I mean, we really don't have I really don't have that.
I don't.
Like, and I used to get so mad when I would see my family, especially when we were second shift, because like we'd see them like Saturday night because we would get off late, whatever. And everyone would be like, it'd be Saturday night and they'd be saying, oh man, you ready to go to work on Monday? I'm like, oh my God, no, I'm not ready to go. Why are we talking about this already? But now, and I think that's, I mean, we do have goals, like, and we have this thing called a vision traction organizer, which for the first 2 years,
that sounds cool.
It's
the
really
book
cool.
Traction. Check it out. You would love it. It's basically about being the CEO of your own business.
Awesome.
So it's an entrepreneurial CEO program, essentially.
Traction. Do you know who wrote it?
I will.
This sounds really
familiar.
I'll
text you a picture. I can't remember his name right now. But the Vision Traction Organizer, like, for months, we would pull it up and go, I don't know what to write. we would
Let me
pull
put this away.
like
Well, there's
Yeah.
so much you don't know what you don't know at
Right.
that point. In
Yes.
the beginning, you're just
Right.
starting out. You're trying to feel your way,
Right.
And you're
that
like-
makes it hard.
and I was like afraid to write things down.
Huh.
Because I think for goals for me, because I told you like I like people to say like, well, she's a leader by example. Well, if you don't
Yeah.
achieve your goals, like, are you a leader? So I just-
Mm.
Are you successful? Like those are questions. So
Yes.
I just didn't want to set a goal that
You didn't meet.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it was like scary to fail it.
Yes.
Not recognizing that there's a whole heck of a lot of growth that happens even if
Yeah.
you
absolutely
right? Like,
That's
shoot
where
for
the
And you
learning.
can shift
Right.
those goals a little bit.
Well, yeah,
you
I feel
know?
like so much like a common thread of this whole conversation is pivoting. I mean, you just,
Oh my
you
God,
know,
yeah.
there's so many pivot
Yeah.
points
Yeah.
within your careers, within
Yeah.
your life where you're like, you know what? And I love Maya Angelou's quote, which I'll probably butcher, but it's about, you know, do the best you can until, you know, and then when you know more, you know, when you
Yeah.
know better, do better, basically,
Exactly.
is the concept. So
Yeah.
it's like, you know, make the best decision you can in that moment. But then as the conditions change and when things change and you learn more,
yes.
then you have that opportunity to pivot and do
Yeah.
something different.
And I've just seen for us, like being real vulnerable with our own team and like how much and how often we pivot. And we have these conversations about like, was that the best expenditure last month? Was that, were we doing the right thing? Should we have changed some things up?
yeah.
Man, they come on board so quick and they're like, hey, look at this. What do you think? And you can have more meaningful conversations more quickly
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
you were like, listen, I didn't go.
Yeah.
I probably, if I had to do it again, I wouldn't do that. But I
Right.
learned this from that, so
Right.
it got me here.
Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like that's so important. But like we aren't really afraid. Like why am I afraid to write it on paper, but not afraid to do it in real life?
I know. I really
That's
wanted to like have a little coaching session with you, but I was like, that's not what we're doing right now, Laura.
Yeah.
Like, I just,
That's a
my time,
conversation
like-
for another day,
Yeah,
Laura.
About that.
Take notes. Take notes.
Well, no,
We'll
I
follow
mean,
up on that.
Yeah.
I mean, with the vision traction organizer now,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we do like that fell into place. When was it? Like last October, November, towards the end of last year.
Yeah.
Finally, it was like, okay, we had the vision enough now to see here's where we're moving.
Yes.
Okay, and you know, we started growing our team.
Yeah.
You know, and now we have people to lead. You know, so
Yes.
for a while there, you want
You're
to
just
be a
leading
leader,
yourself
but we were
and-
leading ourselves.
Yeah.
which was
Which is
fine.
important.
It is
you gotta
important.
get that right.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
But now,
But now
it's
you can
okay.
build.
Here's where we're at. Here's where we're going to be in 3 months. Here's where we're going to be in 6 months and
Yeah.
a year
Yeah.
down the line.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we do
as a
try-
pioneer and
I
seeing
know.
that
I
vision.
was
I'm like
thinking.
watching it grow,
Art
and
loves
I'll
this.
show Mary.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
like when I go into the numbers, I'll say, hey, look, last year at this time, here's where we were. This year, look where we're at. Do you see where,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And now it's like real, it's tangible.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
I think that's important, and I think I've talked about it actually on this podcast before. But for me, I'm not the most patient person. I kind of want things to happen, you know, right now.
Yep.
And when I was starting my business, I was getting frustrated with myself because I didn't feel like I was making enough progress. And I started a marble jar where every time I did just any action, because I am about like, you got to take action, and you've talked about that today,
Mhm.
but anytime I took any type of action to try to help move the business forward, I had a piece of paper. I'd write down the date and what I did, but I would take a marble and put it in a marble jar and a mason jar. And then over time, you know, I just kept
That's
seeing
so
those
good.
marbles
Yep.
adding up. And for me, it was just a visual reminder of, you are making progress. You
Mhm.
are doing things. And each one of those, as it adds up, you know, there's just kind of I don't know, like a ripple effect or an exponential factor
Yeah.
that comes in.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's like, okay, but people don't focus on that. They think a lot of businesses are overnight success stories, or, you know,
Very
and that's
few, if any,
not-
are.
Yeah.
Well, and think about in the corporate world, you come in and whatever position you're hired for, right?
Yeah.
And especially if you come in with no experience,
Right.
you don't know anything.
No.
The first 6 months is
Yeah.
training,
Yes.
someone holding your hand the whole way through this process.
Yes.
Well, when you flip to the entrepreneurial side and you're growing a business, it's the same thing.
Right.
However, I'm not getting a paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah. No
So-
one's paying you to learn
And that's
in those 6 months.
Yeah.
right. And that's where it's like, oh, you kind of sweat some bullets there because
Yes.
you have to learn. You have to make the mistakes to learn, but the mistakes can be costly
Very,
because
yeah.
maybe you didn't connect with the client. Maybe you didn't give them the right solution.
Yes.
Right. So that's the hardest part. And I look at it, you can look at it as the marble jar
Yeah.
or a flywheel.
Yes.
That first turn is, oh God, so painful, right?
Yeah.
And then it gets easier, and then it gets easier. And then once it starts taking off a little bit, your experience starts catching up, and all these things start kicking in later on down the line.
Yeah.
But you have to have that vision or that confidence of like, okay, I'm confident in myself and Mary enough that we'll get this.
Yes.
We're going to make mistakes. We're not going to be good for a while. It's okay to suck.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. You're going to. Just expect it, right?
Oh, yeah, you have to expect it.
Yeah.
Because if you go in with this idea of like, wow, it's just going to be perfect every day and I'm just going to roll in. And by this time next year, I'm going to make $1 million.
Right.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Because if you can show me that business, I'm all in.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But it's hard work, and it's working on yourself. It's working on your craft. It's working on your family. Like all those elements fit into it.
Yes.
It's not just working on your job.
Yes.
You know, it's all these elements that you have to continue to get yourself better, because in the end, that is going to exponentially add to your results in your business.
That's what goes into that
right?
flywheel.
Exactly. Because if you're overbalancing it and you're so invested in your business, but your family's suffering, your personal relationships are suffering, how good are you going to be at your business every day? And that's the whole point of not pouring so much into it, because you're going to burn out.
Yeah.
You're not going to be good for your clients. You're not going to be good for your family, and you're probably going to walk away.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I think is so unique about you too. And that I'm curious about is how you do balance that, because you're right. You could, if you get too far one way or the other, you know, if you're like, we work from home, we don't have to work today, let's hang out with the kids all the time. You know, if you go
that was
too
me
far,
like month 1 and 2. Like, oh.
Well, you needed to just transition, like you said.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah.
We have that's a hard conversation we have with people, you know, at the very beginning too. And that we had to have with ourselves is like, when you work for yourself, it's ultimate freedom. 168 hours a week.
Yes.
And you get to do whatever you want with those.
Yes.
And you can.
No one's bossing you to how you should use that time.
No. And so you definitely we erred on the side of like, well, a little bit of activity is good. Like, we're going to ease ourselves in. Yeah. And you just find it takes forever. Yeah. Like, if you just get disciplined for a period of time. Yeah. And like sprints are great. Yeah. You know, like it doesn't have to be a grind every day. So like I want to work. Mark will tell you, like, I love the idea of like a 16-hour work day. And he's like,
and Mark wants to go to the woods.
Mark's like, stop. Like, you are insane. Why you want to do this? Like, because he's also recognized, like, you're not good at 16 hours.
Yes.
Like, somewhere around 7, you've lost it. Like, you just need to walk away.
You tell yourself you want to work 16 hours, but
yeah. And he's definitely better at like separating work and play. Like he definitely has no problem. Like on Saturday mornings, I'm like, okay, let me see what I could maybe do here today. And he's like, okay, today I'm going in the woods. So you need to like not be doing work.
Yeah.
And
you know, I love that though, that you gotta call each other out.
He is that person. Yeah. And I mean, occasionally I'll say to him, like, you said you were going to do this.
And you were in the woods for 6 hours. What are you doing?
Yeah, and like now it's
you're
Wednesday.
Probably right.
Yeah. You know, like we have accountability to each other in the roles that we hold.
That is so huge.
Like if he doesn't do his job, I can't do mine in certain aspects. So like he's in charge of like setting up the appointment cycle for me, and I'm in charge of setting up the recruitment cycle for him.
Oh, that's so cool.
So if I'm not doing my job on the start of the recruiting stuff, he has no people to interview, and if he's not doing his part on setting up my appointments, I have no clients to sell to. Yeah. So like
I love this mutual accountability that's built in. This is brilliant.
Well,
did you do that on purpose or just?
Well, it just kind of part of it was what we wanted to each do in the business, and it just kind of worked out where I never really thought of it as the mutual accountability, but I mean it does. It makes sense.
Yeah, so we do have to kind of be held accountable to each other to make it all work, right? Like to make it move forward. I don't know what else. I mean, I definitely suffer in like the area of like feeling like it's always got to be hard. Yeah. You know, like it can't be enjoyable until you've reached the end. And I feel like that's still definitely a work in progress for me. You know, like.
Yeah, and I was in that environment where it had to be hard for 20 years. And I'm like, no, it really doesn't. And I'm probably more laid back from that regard. Yeah. You know, just
It's harder
from
for me
my
to like let go for
environment.
sure.
Yeah.
But I'm getting there.
Yeah.
And like we plan stuff now intentionally, you know, to
Yeah.
have that recharge and stuff. And even if we're talking business, like we try to we'll be going to Asheville in March, right? So like we have a little trip to Asheville where it's going to be a drive, right? Like we're going to drive down. It's going to be 7 hours. Like we will talk business a lot of that trip.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We'll also like listen to Pearl Jam and Dave Matthews and think we're like,
Yeah.
it's 1995 again too. Like it's
100%.
right.
Yeah.
Like it's fun, but like there isn't like this, like nobody can ever talk work.
Yeah.
But if we get a little off track, we're like, okay, this is like family, not time, not now.
Let's
Yeah.
knock it off for a
Yeah.
while. Or
But-
like you said earlier, like we can talk about this.
Yeah. And if there is
tomorrow or
stuff
whatever.
important that we have to discuss, we have this like standing breakfast date one day a week where like you just put it on the agenda for that. For
I
that hour and a
love
half. And like
this.
like big stuff happens then. Like VTO happens then.
Yeah.
Like just like major
like,
financial
yeah.
decisions happen
Yeah.
then, like major moves in the business, but also just like family stuff. Like, hey,
Yeah.
we need kids, Christmas is coming up. Like, what's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
What we
that
gonna
was
do
one of
here?
those meetings, you know, like, okay, so did you get the lacrosse cleats and did you get, you know, do you have the
Yeah.
basketball ordered? Like those kinds of questions because
Yeah.
you have to take time. So for us, there's definitely an integration. It's not just.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
A
Yeah,
harmony.
that like that
Work-life
work-life
harmony.
balance
Yeah,
thing.
harmony.
Yeah, it's more work-life integration.
Yes, I agree
And
with you.
and yeah, so every week it can be totally different,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And it's okay. Like if we have a team member that a lot of our team members are on the West Coast, so we might get messages at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. That's okay. They're working
Yeah.
with a client. They need our help.
Yeah.
Mary or I will peel away for,
Yeah.
and it's never very long. It might be 10 or 15 minutes. And
yeah.
we help them. We give them what they need. And then right back
But it sounds
to
like you're real
family time.
intentional about, boundaries in terms of what we're willing to do, what we're not willing to do,
Oh,
heavy,
yeah.
heavy
Yeah.
communication.
Well,
around
and the cool
that.
part is with our team, like if Mary and I go on vacation,
Yeah.
whatever, we're going to go on a trip for a week. Of course, we're going to check in with our team, but our greater team is so awesome about like, hey, the Cholocks are on vacation.
Yeah.
They can field
can
any
handle
questions,
it.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
That you've
And
built.
that's what's so awesome about our culture.
Yeah.
Like I know if we're out,
You can
our
really
our
step
team is
away.
going to get the information they need. They're going
Yeah.
to be well taken care of,
Yeah.
and vice versa. For our other teammates.
Yeah,
you know?
that's super
So-
cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I really appreciate about running a business is just how much it changes your perspective on all businesses. So
Yeah.
I think about, sometimes companies are upset if they have employees that have side hustles or other things,
Yeah.
but I'm like, no, like encourage it to from the perspective of it makes them think about their day job differently
Mm-hmm.
too,
Yeah.
because, I'm sure, when you were starting in a lab, you weren't thinking this is a company that, someone started from scratch at one point, and what goes
Right.
into it. You didn't have an appreciation for it, right?
No.
And sometimes I think, especially when you are a part of a big corporation, you don't see it as like someone was sitting in their kitchen one day and, or whatever the
Right.
story is, of how it started. So I think, if you think back to when, you started your career versus what you know now, I mean, is there something that maybe you thought about that you believed that you feel differently about now, or, a perspective that's changed? I'd just like to hear.
I
your
just
thoughts.
I love small businesses, so
Yeah.
innovative
Yeah.
ideas and things like that. Of course, local businesses, but even national businesses, things I see online or whatever.
Yeah.
So I am very apt to, if there's a good or a service
Yeah.
that if I can contribute to a small
Support
business and
that.
support it, I love it.
Because you know what goes into it.
Yep. Yeah. Because it's just neat to see that. It's like, wow, this person had a great idea.
Yes.
They
Took a risk.
took a huge risk or took a risk.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important about the risk aspect. Like
Yes.
if you want to play it safe your entire life, that's fine.
Yeah.
But just know the results are probably going to be what average
Yeah.
or what you've seen generations before us,
Right.
right?
Right.
You're going to have that job. You're going to have a little bit in retirement,
Yeah.
and that's great.
Yeah.
But you look at all the people that took risks
Yeah.
and where they end up. Of
Yeah.
course, there's times they don't work,
Right.
and that's okay. But
yeah.
but even at that, if this wouldn't work, I can tell you, I can put my head down on a pillow every night and know that, like, look, we tried, we tried the
Yes.
hardest that we could, and whatever, it just wasn't for us, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But you never know what can come of it if
Yeah,
you
if you
don't
don't
take that risk.
try.
You've
Yeah.
got, yeah.
And I mean, there's a book, Dan Pink. Do you know Dan Pink? I feel like you would like his work.
No, I need to.
I
need to like write
that
these-
down
yeah.
right now.
There's a
Dan
reading
Pink,
list.
he's written a lot of great books, but his most recent one was The Power of Regret. So he did a
yeah.
global study on regret.
Oh, interesting.
Sounds like kind of a depressing piece of work
It's
to
like
do.
Renee's
but-
work on shame. Like,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. But he did this whole big study on regret, and what he found in his research was that more often than not, people, well, first of all, like, it's not good to be like, I have no regrets, I live with no regrets, because the regret is where you learn, right? So, like, let's embrace the regret. But what he talks about in the book is that typically people will regret the things they didn't do versus the things that they did do.
100% agree.
So,
I hear that like in my family so many times of like, this piece of property came up for sale and I should have bought it like 20 years ago. And now it's worth $1.2 million. I could have paid $30,000
I could
for
have
it.
invested in
Right.
IBM when they first started. Yeah.
Right. So like I learn a lot by observation and by, you know, those kinds of opportunities that slipped away for others.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to be that guy that lets that opportunity go by, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's another driving kind of force of like, okay, we're going to step out on our own. We're going to do this. And we're not going to be deterred. There's going to be things that pop up, and we're going to keep going until we get to that life that we want, that we design, that we want.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you got to enjoy the journey on the way too.
For sure.
And the ups and downs.
Give yourself permission to enjoy it.
And the ups and downs, because the ups wouldn't be great without the downs.
You're right.
Right? You've
gotta
got
have them.
Yeah, when you hit that summit of whatever you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And you look back and you're like, man, we overcame this and this and this, and look where we're at now.
Yeah, and what a story.
Yeah,
for sure.
I get excited about that stuff.
I know.
I
I'm
love
excited.
it. I love it.
Okay, I feel like you're gonna maybe inspire some couples to start a business or work together. What advice would you give other couples who maybe are getting ready to embark on this journey?
Communication, for sure.
Yeah. I think the 5 voices is really like that for us opened up so much, because I don't think sitting here 2 years ago, you would have said you guys are great communicators.
Okay, good to know.
I really don't.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel like that really took our game up a big level, was me understanding that he sees further out in the future. And it's not that he's ignoring what I'm saying. It's just that he's so focused out there.
Yes.
So I think knowing that about your partner, I mean, any kind of those personality tests, but really that one is just
that one is so good.
That one's so easy to grasp and just to really put into action. That's why I really like that.
Like, not only if you're not building a business, I don't care. Like, take that test and have your partner take it as well, because it just gives you a completely different perspective. And now I understand how Mary reacts to certain things as well as, and it's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, regardless of whether you're running a business together,
Right.
if you're running a
No,
family together.
right.
Yeah.
It's just a great
helpful
tool
to know.
Yeah.
And I think too, like we have said, like maybe our entrepreneurial journey didn't start until a few years ago, but like we have said since we met and started dating, like that we wanted a different kind of life than like a regular 9 to 5. And so when we had kids, we knew we needed to get some stability. We needed to figure some things out.
Yeah.
But I think our vision has always been shared, that like we knew what we're working towards. And so when we make decisions now in our business or in our life like that, if it doesn't point to that goal, and the values of the company that we partnered with, like really allow us to just live that truly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's important too.
Yeah.
Yes,
So I mean,
it is.
obviously that integrity, that belief in what we're doing is huge. But I think that we just now make only decisions that lead us to that life.
Yes.
And so it's very like there's not a whole lot of hard decisions to make, because it's like, does it get us to there? Is it a step towards?
Yeah.
And if we're like, yeah, I think it is, then it's like, well, we're going to do it. And also be totally okay if it doesn't go wrong, or you've got to step back.
Yeah.
Right? And just be like, okay, so that was the wrong adventure.
Right.
Or that was the wrong
That didn't turn out the way I thought it was going to, because you're going to have that, right?
Yeah,
You're going to have that.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
like
what's
we
the
have
stat of how, these ultra great entrepreneurs
Yeah.
that they fail how many times at
Oh, yeah.
like 10 different businesses, and then
Yes.
finally they find the one and bang.
Absolutely. Or
Yeah.
inventors or even
Yeah.
athletes. I mean, you hear those stories
Right.
all the time.
Yeah. So, and I think like us both being like, the fact that like he asked me to join him made me feel that equity that we were talking about
Yes.
earlier. Like
Yes.
the idea that like I am in business with him. Like
Yes.
this is what we're building, and
Yeah.
my decisions and my input is as valuable as everything that he says and does.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hurt that we have split like the workload.
Yeah. I know.
Well,
That's
and
very
that
smart.
shared vision, I think, is probably like rule number one.
Yeah.
Like the key. Because if you're not working towards the same vision, you're going to
Yes.
diverge.
Yes.
You're going to go off track. You're going to, so that's super important.
Well,
And you
there's
might
so
have
much
the greatest
leadership in that,
relationship,
too.
right?
Yeah.
But
and
but it
and
doesn't
let the
matter
other
if
one
you don't
tell
have
you
the
what they
same
love
vision.
to do.
Yeah.
Let them tell you what really makes them happy and find a way to make that their job, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't think that if I had to do the mentoring part of our business, and not that I don't love our team and connect with them in different
Yeah.
ways, I don't have that skill set, and it drains me.
Yes.
You know, like I enjoy doing, and I'll do it.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
I want them to succeed, and
And
I want
like all the onboarding pieces that Mary does, like to me, they're very tedious of step 1 and step 2. And like that
Yeah.
drains me.
Yeah. But
So,
she's getting to use her
she loves it.
creativity and
She
her,
loves it.
her
Yeah.
educating, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
So,
arm.
right. So I think that's important. Like
Yeah,
shared
that
vision,
is.
and just like let the other one tell you what they love, and like try to make that their thing. You know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This. Yes. I just love you too because you're great people, and I've known
Thank
that
you.
for a long time. But I mean, I just think it's so cool to talk about. The whole purpose of this podcast is just revisiting and rediscovering leadership from different industries, different walks of life, different definitions of leadership, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I just love that how much you've talked today about, leading in the home, leading together, leading each other as partners. It's just very inspiring.
Oh,
Oh,
thanks.
thanks, Laura.
Yeah. Well done. Keep doing it. Don't give up when it gets hard.
Yeah.
No,
No, I don't think we're giving up.
we really
I don't think so.
we don't have it in
No.
us to give up. Never have.
Yeah.
Period.
I love it.
Yeah.
What else? Anything that we haven't covered that you are dying to talk about today?
I don't think so.
For sure.
I don't think.
No, I don't. I think
No,
we've
this-
kind of covered that whole.
Yeah, the whole gamut. I don't think there's anything.
I
we
love
haven't-
this. I feel like I just watched like a little mini breakfast meeting between the
Oh,
two
yeah.
of you.
We're
Like,
getting
Yeah.
really good at like looking
Yeah.
at each other
Oh,
because we
yeah.
do a lot of co-facilitating of meetings and stuff now.
Yeah.
So we didn't do that in our life before. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
even
that's
in
why I
our
was
corporate
like, you
world.
worked
Yeah.
at the same company, but you really weren't
we
working
didn't-
together
yeah.
necessarily. That's
Yeah.
so funny. Yeah, you learn more.
It's
and more
getting
about
pretty
each
bad,
other.
but like sometime I'll be on the way home, and maybe Mary's working, and I'll stop and pick up something to eat or something from the grocery store, and she'll say, "I was thinking exactly the same thing." Like I'm talking the same food, not
Yeah.
just, "Hey, we need to make dinner."
Yeah.
Like I was thinking exactly. I wanted pizza.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's wild.
Yeah,
That's
it's-
cool. I feel like, again, I know
it's
this isn't like
crazy.
a romance podcast, but I feel like it's probably taken your relationship to a different level too.
Yeah, I
Sure.
think we're like so much more together all the time.
Yeah,
Right? Like
yeah,
all the time. So
yeah.
I do think that, like Mark loves to hunt, and so that's his thing. He gets his time away. But
Yeah.
we are spending more time together, and it's meaningful time. Like we used to
Yeah.
like watch a lot of TV, and like just like he
Stare
would,
off in
because
space
Yeah.
I would be
because we were
exhausted
so
and he was exhausted.
Yeah.
And now I feel like we definitely are getting to that place where we're working from rest instead of like always in this cycle of exhaustion.
Ooh, working from rest. I love
Right?
With it, like,
Love that.
and
That's out of the powerful engagement.
that's
Okay.
having the time to recharge. I think that's a really important thing to talk
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Is our greatest gains have come from that recharge period. I cannot
Yes.
tell you how many times I will be sitting in the woods and I do not actively think about work,
Yeah.
about business. I'm connected, I'm in the woods and I'm doing my thing.
Yeah.
And an idea just pops into my head
Yep.
of like, oh, I got to share this with Mary, or
Yeah.
this is,
Yeah.
and it's unbelievable how that
Yes.
just happens. Whereas before, like in the corporate world, your mind's like on this
Yes.
hamster wheel.
Yes.
And you don't get a chance to just stop and think and really problem solve.
Yeah, and actually, you could be such a better employee
you
if you
absolutely
had that
110%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point, though.
I think we're going to see a shift.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so too. It's coming.
I
Yeah.
think. Well, because I think the great resignation that happened,
yeah.
and then people got back to work, but now they're also like, they're not going to be okay with the status quo anymore.
Yes.
Because there are other options.
Yeah.
And I think some value came out of the pandemic of like,
Life is short.
Life is short.
Life is short.
You don't know how it's going to change, and
Yeah.
there's not enough time. And I think that was a big piece for us, was just like, we really don't want to work until we're 65 and then just like wait to die. Like,
Midlife
right
crisis.
off in the
You know.
sunset. Yeah.
so we had a midlife crisis, and we
Good.
decided to start a business.
Yeah. During the pandemic, which is great. I mean,
Think
it's worked out.
Here's the other thing I have to say is that in all of these experiences, like, we literally keep looking at each other and go, can you imagine when we write this all down? Like, can we
Yes.
imagine when
Yeah.
we're like talking to somebody about how this all happened? So
Yes.
like this
like
having
if you were on a podcast.
like if like this
Well,
is
this is great because it's recorded, right? So from
we'll get
at
you
least
a
to this point,
transcription. So your
Perfect.
first couple
Perfect.
chapters of the book are done.
but it is interesting. You know, you make those decisions in your life, and then you go back and you're thinking like, wow. And I mean, we think back,
Yeah.
like the serendipitous meeting, even like
Mhm.
there were some crazy things that happened that we even met.
yeah.
And then
that's
you
so
think
cool.
like, if that didn't happen,
then this would have happened, and this
Yeah.
would have
there's
happened.
so many
Yeah.
things, right? And when you really start
Yeah.
thinking
Of
like
course.
that your life is like all these choices and all of these opportunities and all these things happen, and you're right where you're supposed to be, and like all those things led you here,
Yeah.
and now give you the knowledge and the capabilities to keep it going. It's just so cool. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. We're ending there because that's good. And I see you getting teary-eyed, Mary. And I don't want you
Oh
to cry.
boy.
Oh. Yeah,
but
well.
seriously, this has been amazing. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank you.
Now,
Oh, thank you.
I do the lightning round at the end.
Oh,
Are
goodness.
you game for the
All right,
lightning
let's
round?
bring it on.
Let me take a drink of water.
Okay.
Bring it on.
This is 60 seconds to answer as many open-ended questions as you can.
Okay.
This might be a little chaotic because I'm just going to ask you both at the same time. So
Okay.
just
I'm not
do
going to
our
look at you
best
for
here.
these.
Okay. Yeah. Focus. Okay. What season best fits your personality?
Summer.
Spring and fall change.
What's your most used emoji in text?
Oh,
Fire.
Fire. Oh, I don't even know.
He doesn't
Thumbs
know
up.
what emojis
Thumbs
are.
up.
Okay.
Yeah, thumbs up.
Lame. What book, song, movie, or podcast has had the greatest impact on your life?
Oh.
The song we danced to, Low Light, when we got married.
Oh boy.
Oh,
I would say alive. I'm still alive.
Very cool. What's something about you that surprises people when they first hear it?
That I
a
was
model.
cold and unapproachable.
Cold and unapproachable. And did you say you were a model?
I was
Okay. Very
back in the day.
This is fascinating. These are things I didn't know about either one of you. And you're not cold and unapproachable. I do know that. All right. Fill in the blank. I spend too much money on.
Hunting gear.
Hunting gear.
If you could catch me by the fridge at night, I'm probably sneaking what?
A beer.
Nice.
Yeah.
Before you go paint a door.
100%.
Yeah.
I may have been drinking a beer at that point too. Maybe 3 or 4.
I think 90% of the first year of my business was perhaps fueled by a cocktail or two.
It's creative. You gotta
It
get
is
out of that
creative.
fog.
What would you be sneaking? Also a beer?
Oh
did
yeah,
you say?
also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you,
Oh,
Laura.
thank you, Laura. Thanks for having us.
Keep rocking it out.
Heck
Thanks.
yeah.
Okay. All right. That's all the time we have for today. Until next time, shine bright, everyone.